Welcome to UNCAGED, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we've got Lubna Samara on the show. Hey, Lubna, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you, Ben?
I'm well, Lubna. I'm excited to talk to you, and I think that this is certainly one of the trends that I see in 2021, and you're right at the center of it. Lubna is the founder of HigherWill. HigherWill is a company that provides personal and corporate spiritual development programs, and we'll talk more with Lubna on exactly what HigherWill is doing. But before we get there, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career journey.
Well, I started my life out, my working life out as a mathematician in the petroleum industry. And I needed
completely makes sense that you would be doing spiritual work.
Do you know something? The number of healers who start out life as scientists and end up in healing is very high. And but I will get onto that a bit later. But I then did more studying, and I went into other jobs, and I ended up in investment banking. And while I was working in investment banking, one day I looked down and just saw these things down my front. And I asked a friend what they were. And she said to me, well, those are your chakras. And she gave me a book to read. And so I read the book, but I didn't really think much more about it. And at that point, I'd been to counseling. I realized I had some repeat patterns, like my work path, for instance, was one, relationships, friends. And I went into counseling for a few months. And about 6 months after that, I saw my energy fields, again, very spontaneously. And I saw blockages. And I was told these are my dynamics. And, understanding what these dynamics are is a very good place to start. It's a very good thing to do. But until we release these things and we release them from the heart, we're going to keep getting caught into the same patterns. So I needed to work on my energy fields. So at that time, I started doing Tai Chi to circulate the energy and meditation. So within a very short period of time, I was doing like 2 hours of Tai Chi every day and then 2 hours of meditation as well.
Wow.
And I ended up doing that for 8 years. But at the beginning of my journey of doing that, a few months after I started the Tai Chi and meditation, somebody stopped me and said to me, your energy is really strong. You should do healing. And I was like, I'm a mathematician. I don't believe in that, And I said that. I thought, oh God, I hate that. I am open-minded. I will try anything once, So I thought, I'm going to go, I'm going to go and do that. So, of course, 6 weeks later, I hadn't done anything about it. Somebody else stopped me and they said to me, you've got really strong energy. You should do healing. And at that point, I thought, okay, I'm going, And I did. I ended up going to healing. And after about 3 sessions, I came out of the session thinking, wow, we use between 5%, maybe 7% maximum of our brains. So this is what some of the rest is like. And after that, I became totally converted. I mean, that working with energy is we create energy, our thoughts guide energy. It is the most elegant form of healing we can have. And our science is great. I mean, I love allopathic medicines. I work with doctors and I have all respect for all their knowledge and what they do. But our technology is not yet, our science is not yet sufficiently advanced to be able to deal with energy and to work with it. And the reason why I think we have so many people, there are a lot of people who come from engineering backgrounds, science backgrounds, maths background, like myself, who end up working in healing. And I think maybe because speaking for myself, when you start opening up your mind to that and you start perceiving energy and how it works, there is incredible order and beauty to it, and such a high intelligence. It is such an extreme intelligence, and it is the most elegant way of treating something. And I worked for a long time for about 4 years, I worked as a volunteer on a council estate. So I was healing a lot, it's like a
Mm-hmm.
factory, we had a lot of people. And the number of people we helped, the number of miracles that I've seen, compared to what, it just totally shifts your perspective.
So
And
it's a kind of an amazing journey, really. I mean, you've gone from kind of petroleum energy to spiritual
yes,
energy, right? Which is a great pathway. And so I'd love to kind of dig deeper a little bit on what you're doing with HigherWill now and the development programs that you deliver through HigherWill.
So with HigherWill, it's really combining spiritual coaching with healing. And I work with energy as well, but I work with spiritual coaching. Now, a lot of people think, I've had people on Twitter tell me, how can you coach people to be spiritual? And this is the thing, we are all spiritual. There's a quote by Pierre de Chardin. It says, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And the word spirituality is, unfortunately, it's a limitation of the English language. It can mean having a belief in a greater being, a God, a divinity that controls us. It can have that connotation. But it is also the term that we use for connecting to our conscience. So a person who is a highly spiritual being is somebody who has very high values, who has integrity, who has nobility, who has kindness, who has compassion. So we term that as a spiritual being as well. And when we are working with this spiritual coaching, we do whatever the life coaches would typically do, which is to help our clients identify where they're at, to help them to see, where they're feeling really stuck, how to help them go beyond that, how to set goals for them and hold them accountable to these goals and help support them and give them a lot of help, really. But with the spiritual coaching, we also look deeper. We look at their life path. Very often I've had people coming to me feeling very stuck in their lives, feeling they're in a place of darkness. They just don't see their way forward. So with spiritual coaching, we help them to dig deeper. We help them to unblock those moments, those patterns that happen.
Yeah. And I feel like right now it's almost a bit of a generational divide, I believe, which is, I find that the Gen Zers or the Gen Yers and millennials who are more open to kind of coaching and really kind of speaking more openly about kind of the energies and the trying to build that sense of what you were talking about, which is like a bit of flow. And so I'd just be curious to kind of see how you look at the services that you're working on and the areas that you're focused on in kind of the broader context of business today and life today. How are people perceiving this, and really how is this now becoming part of their lives?
There's been a lot of trend now with people to understand that their life path, their life purpose is a very important part of themselves. It's what makes them want to get up in the morning. It's what motivates you in life. It's what makes you feel excited about going into work. It's what connecting to your values helps you to negotiate problem spots in your relationships. So the divide between what was typically called spiritual before, which is a belief in another being, which is a higher being, which I don't exclude, but I mean, it's no longer what we are talking about. That divide between processes and systems, especially in the corporate office, and the spiritual side is now slowly and very thankfully wearing thinner, because you cannot.
Yeah, so maybe more of a holistic perspective, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
completely
It's a
makes
much more
sense.
holistic perspective. But I mean, even recently, I was talking to somebody who works in leadership and who's quite well known in leadership. And I was trying to explain to him what I do. And he said to me, so what does spirituality have to do with leadership? I'm like, how can you separate spirituality from leadership? How can you separate that from values or vision or mission? It's all connected. How can you separate that from motivating people to work or from loyalty?
Yeah,
And
I think it's a brilliant point. I would say that if anything, over the last couple of years, we've all been presented with this fact that we have to think of the whole self and a complete person in terms of how you think about their work and personal life balance. And so holistic thinking has been kind of missing, I would say, from the discussion of business in general. And so it makes complete sense that you would raise it. But if you think of all of the policies that leaders have followed to be better leaders, like Six Sigma and all these kind of systems that have been pushed over the years to make better leaders, they don't really talk about that, right?
it's a process.
Yeah.
It's a process. And the concept of servant leadership, for instance, which I love. I mean, that's actually in the States, you're kind of still ahead of the UK and us in here in this area. But the concept of servant leadership is mentioned in the I Ching, which is a 5,000-year-old book. And in that, it says to lead truly is to serve. And the whole concept of that is kind of set out really clearly in the I Ching. And servant leadership, which was founded by Robert Greenleaf, I think it was in the late 60s, of the 3 top values of being a servant leader, one of them is to be a healer, for instance. And then you had people like Winston Churchill, who in his 1941 address to Congress when he was in the US, he basically said, I am a servant of the people. He addressed the Congress saying, I, like you, am a servant of the people. And whether you like him or not, when London was being bombed during the war, and people were feeling very, very demoralized, he got out of the bunker and stood on top of the bunker and gave them an address. And that is leadership. That is a leader who really cares about the people.
Yeah, no, I completely see that. And I think that probably looking at how what you deliver in the context of leadership really leads nicely into really a topic I wanted to make sure we looked at in more depth, which is the pandemic. This has been a challenging moment for everyone in every aspect of their lives, but certainly mental health has been a huge area, and also understanding that holistic perspective of purpose. So just be curious to kind of see the types of things that you've dealt with and the way you're looking at this pandemic.
So the interesting thing is, for like a couple of years before the pandemic and lockdown started, some of my clients and friends were telling me, you really need to go online. I'm like, yeah, I will. I just didn't do it. I was just, you get too busy, and I thought, can we wait till later? So then the pandemic happened, and I thought, right, now is the time. So I did. I kind of scaled my work, and I took a month to think about how I was going to do it. And I started events. I did a lot of free online events. And so I gave events. To start with, it was just more meditations, guided meditations. And then I started talking a lot more to them, explain to them exactly where I was coming from, what we do, how to. I started giving talks on the areas that I really love to do, which is spiritual intelligence, servant leadership, and superconscious mind is an area I really love. And that kind of connects really well with the healing, which I kind of started out with. And one thing that with healers is that all the research since the 70s has shown that when healers, because people are curious how it works, and they find that when healers heal, they did, using EEGs, healers go into the theta, they go beyond the alpha state, they go into the theta, delta, and gamma, but they also put their clients into that state. So I was working with people to teach them how to get into these states in order to affect and to use meditation really wisely, to maximize the benefits of the meditations. And I ended up giving a lot of talks. We did about 30 talks online, and that was brilliant, and I really enjoyed it. So for me, that was a really, I like to think that I put it to very good use in terms of
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways is kind of almost like a catalyst for kind of expanding the use of digital, but also obviously expanding the exposure that HigherWill and what you're working on gets. And certainly I would say not only expanding it, but it was the only way we could connect, right? I mean, it wasn't, there were
For
periods
me,
there, right?
for me, I mean, I love technology. I love technology. So for me, the much wider use of Zoom and platforms work brilliantly. And I mean, I have clients now in the US, I have clients in the Far East, I have clients in the Middle East, and which I couldn't do before. And it's the reach is larger, and it's also the feedback I'm getting is so much, richer. So I feel very kind of enriched by the whole experience in terms of my work. I mean, it's very sad on other fronts, obviously, but in terms of what I've been doing,
Yeah,
it's been really.
absolutely. And so, I mean, Lubna, as you think going forward, we've been living through this moment where people have been kind of, I think, reflecting a lot more, perhaps opening themselves up to this more holistic view of self. How do you imagine that's going to evolve over the next couple of years?
Do you know something? I just recently did a survey. I mean, literally this last 10 days. And it's about the three main challenges facing professionals to feeling fulfilled in their lives. And I put like a list of questions. At the very, very end of it, I just, as an afterthought, I shoved in wanting a better connection to the inner self. And I'm having an event this Saturday, which is to reveal the top three and to go through and to give some training on that. But I was really surprised that
But you can give us a taster, no?
oh, really? Well, let's just say the first question was feeling blocked from progressing in their path. They just don't see where they are in their path. And that is very, very common. And I've had a lot of people come to me telling me, I want to do what you did. I want to leave and just go, or I want to go to Peru. And I tell them, no, let's just wait a second. And almost in 90% of the cases, we work with whatever things that they're not really connecting to on their path, and resolving these issues in the place of work that they're at. And they start seeing the light a lot more, and they feel a lot better about it, and they're a lot happier there. Very rarely people really feel like they need to leave and go into something completely different, which is much more connected to their purpose, or what they feel is their purpose. But yes, so that is the number one.
I love it. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I must admit, it's a bit of a reminder, probably for myself, that I need to think about things in a more holistic fashion in general. If someone wanted to reach you and learn more about what you're working on and what HigherWill is working on, where should they find you?
From the website, if they can just, I give free 30 minutes consultations for one-on-one work, or if they can always just contact me through the website. I'm very easy to contact. So it's they can just book a session with me, and we can have a half an hour consultation.
Excellent. Well, Lubna, thank you so much for being on Uncaged today. We've been speaking with Lubna Samara. She's the founder of HigherWill, which is a company that provides personal and corporate spiritual development programs. It's been great to hear Lubna's story as she's moved from pure maths, mathematics, as well as moving into the petroleum industry, and ultimately now creating a spiritual development company focused on really understanding the whole self and offering spiritual coaching services. Lubna, thank you so much for being on the program today, and I look forward to talking to you again about how things are evolving.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
Cheers.